Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Travel Show with John Guinn on UKHealthRadio.com. I've been going through my archives over the last few weeks. The show's been going for nearly 5 years. A couple of weeks' time, it'll be the 5th anniversary. And I found an interview I recorded in 2012 when I was on holiday in Antigua, and I haven't played it again since. And because I can't make it to Antigua this year, which is my favourite Caribbean island, or second favourite, well, it's in the top 3 anyway, I thought I'd try and recreate the atmosphere by listening to a few of the interviews I did. And the first one will be with Mr. Colin James, who was the CEO at the Antigua and Barbuda Tourism Authority. And you can understand why I want to go there when you hear him talk and how relaxed he is as he discusses what you can see and do if you visit the islands. And before that, we'll hear from Adam Mortimer from the UK European Consumer Centre. We're going to run through their annual report, and he's going to share some tips for you for when you go on holiday or when you do some shopping. But first off, I've reported an advert to the Advertising Standards Authority way back in January, and I didn't hear anything, chased it up last week, and then within 24 hours they've come to a decision. But it's not one I'm really happy with, to be perfectly honest. So last week, the concerns, along with the backup evidence to my concerns, I sent them to the ASA in January about a travel advert that was published in January. And what happened was the ASA passed my concerns on to the advertiser and provided guidance to them on the areas that require attention, together with advice on how to ensure that their future advertising complies with the advertising codes. Unfortunately, the full ASA findings will not be published, and I'm finding it very difficult at the moment to know if I can actually say who the company is. And at the time of the recording, it's the day before the ASA sends out its weekly update. So by the time you hear this, it may be on the website that they've made a decision about this company, but they won't tell you any more than that. I'm thinking about appealing because I think what I was complaining about, if I'm right, is very, very important as a consumer travel show, but there's no freedom of information with the Advertising Standards Authority, so I can't get all the records together. I can just think about appealing, and I'll let you know next week whether I do or not. I've still got 2 weeks left to make my mind up. So that wasn't the big news story about an advert I wanted to share with you this week, but I just thought I'd update you in case you remember that I mentioned it over the last few weeks. Back to my first guest this week, Adam Mortimer from the European Consumer Centre, the UK European Consumer Centre, or UKECC as I called it throughout the interview. It's a very important organisation. They've been on the show many times, but if you haven't heard about them before, the first thing Adam's going to talk about is going to describe who they are and what they do.
We're here to provide advice and assistance for people that have made a cross-border dispute. That can arise from a purchase, it can be a service, going on holiday. So many different things fall under our scope. It's difficult to tell you everything that we do, but the main thing is if you've got a problem with someone abroad within the EU, you can give us a call or drop us an email and we'll see if we can help in any way.
Okay, with the Brexit vote last year, are you really still relevant?
The Brexit is kind of an unknown for us. We're unsure of how it's going to pan out because we're funded 50% by the European Union and the UK government. So we hope that there'll be some sort of service, but of course the unknown is there. We don't really know at the moment.
So the Brexit could have real bad outcomes for consumers then?
I would imagine. I mean, the information is still the same. Obviously, the laws in the UK run very closely with the laws of the EU, so it shouldn't really affect consumers. It may be access to that information, but that's just obviously speculating.
Okay. The UKECC just published its annual report. What were you looking into?
Quite a lot, has happened since 2015. We've had about 17,000 contacts, so that's people looking for advice. In 2016, that's about 18% up on 2015. So, the need for that, certainly with our biggest area of complaining is transport. As I'm sure you're aware, that includes car hire, air travel, that kind of thing. But with with the environment we're in, it's more applicable now with, say like air passenger transport, because it's so well documented in the media. Lots more people know that they might have a right, but don't know what it is. So, the use of us is obviously gaining, and we can see that quite a lot.
So somebody's been delayed with a flight, they can contact you and ask you what steps to take.
Yeah, anything like that. I mean, even if you're unsure where the company are, we have this knowledge, this training that allows us to, give you what help we can. Practical stuff is often better than the law sometimes. So, anyone that doesn't have any idea of what they're dealing with, they can contact us.
And unlike some of the adverts I see in the newspaper, your advice is free.
Yes, yeah. So obviously being a government organisation, the advice and assistance that we give is all free.
You mentioned car hire there. What sort of car hire problems were you coming across in 2016?
Yeah, so a lot of car hire revolves around damage being recorded after the hire. People might not know that, or they might have not done the appropriate, paperwork at the end, and some companies can exaggerate those costs. You get the insurance added on when you don't necessarily know what you're signing for when you take the car. They're the main things that you see, because they're quite... The companies can prey on the fact that a consumer might not know exactly what they have to do when they pick up that car.
Is your website the place they can find out what they should look out for before they go and collect the car keys?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll find this kind of stuff well documented anywhere, but in terms of good tips, if you can find all of that on a website. We're not shy in giving that information out. I think everyone should be able to know that, having a bit of confidence when you get to the rental desk. I mean, you're in a different country. You might not understand what they're saying. They might point you to a terms and conditions which is not legible, or say in Spanish, for instance. So it can be a bit daunting. But you shouldn't let your guard down just because you're on holiday. You should be looking at this, making sure you do a really good check around the car is a main thing. And again, when you send it back, even take some pictures on your camera, because they can all help you out at the end. But I think the thing to remember is, if it does go wrong, there are things you can do afterwards. It's not just, I've lost all that money. It's pick up the phone. Let's go through it together. Let's see what we can do.
You're listening to The Travel Show with John Guinn on UKHealthRadio.com. Still to come on the show, why you should consider visiting Antigua and Barbuda. But first, the UK European Consumer Centre. Adam Mortimer is my guest, and we're talking about European rights for the consumers. And he's just explained about who they are and that are still relevant, even though about the Brexit vote last year. But this is a travel show, of course, so let's start talking about travel. And I don't know about you, when I've been on holiday in Europe, I have been pestered about timeshares, even when I was in the Caribbean as well. So Adam's now going to give some advice about what to do if you're approached about a holiday club or a timeshare. People are going away for the summer holidays soon, and you've talked about travel. And one thing, when I've been away in Europe particularly, people come up and try and sell me a timeshare or a holiday club. Did that sort of thing feature in your report?
Yes, definitely. It's over the years that has been in gradual decline, but only because the companies have got very good at getting around the legislation with the products that they're selling. However, when we talk about timeshare, I think the main bulk of that now is not actually a bona fide timeshare. It's more of a holiday club or a holiday contract in whatever form that is. And that still happens because, people are away on holiday, and as I said before with the car, you let your guard down a bit and you become more open to suggestion. You might go to a presentation, you might get a few glasses of champagne, and one thing leads to another, and you're entering into a contract, and that can be tough, especially when a lot of these contracts don't have a cooling off period, and don't fall under any legislation, which means they have to. And that can be tough. Then it's again more education with that, I think, than preventative afterwards, because it's very difficult.
So if you don't have a cooling off period, how do you get out of it?
It's not that easy. You might not be able to. It might be that you are stuck with that contract. I mean, the saving grace of this is that usually these contracts are under a year, so you're not tied into anything long term like you would be with the usual timeshare, which does have to have a cooling off period. So whereas you might lose money, you've then got the option of trying to claim that back under Section 75 or chargeback, which might not be applicable any other route.
I'm sure they're not all bad, these holiday clubs, but if you are invited to a presentation, what questions should you ask? What are the top three?
I think the main thing to remember before we get into what sort of questions you ask is that a holiday club or a holiday contract or a timeshare is something which should be suiting to your personal situation. For example, if you're a family with 3 children, you're obviously not going to be travelling in the summer holiday and the school terms. So it's obviously going to be very difficult to get a holiday in school holidays, because that's when many people go. If you're a couple, no children, you might have more flexibility, and that in turn may give you a better chance of getting a good week or something like that, a different destination. But when you're at these places, you should obviously have your guard up. Someone is trying to sell you a product. They're going to tell you the things that you want to hear. Read the terms and conditions. Firstly, look and see if there's a cooling off period. If there is, that's good, because it may allow you to hold back if you do decide otherwise. Don't let them bully you into having to sign it there and then. Most of these places will make it very difficult for you to leave, but don't forget, you can just get up and leave. There's nothing stopping you, although they will probably have an answer for everything. So it's just making sure that you've got your guard up and you're able to have control of your own thoughts and views and decisions. That's the best advice I can give to anyone, really.
So stay off the pop and just drink water, so you're always fully under control. Because I know what I'm like.
Yeah. It's tough, and that's why so many people find themselves in these positions. You're on holiday, you're in holiday mode, and we all know what that's like. You get into holiday, and you're carefree. It's your chance to spend that time with your family or with your partner, with the hard-earned money that you've done to get you there. So you find yourself being more susceptible to more of that situation. It's bizarre, but it does happen, and there's no point in shying away from it. It's just, how can you educate to stop that when it doesn't necessarily need to happen?
I was in Cyprus and a load of people came up with these cards trying to publicise an event, and I said I'm a travel agent, so